And now the conclusion of Plato's Symposium with a monologue by the drunk guy Alcibiades. And now, my boy, I shall praise Socrates in a figure which will appear to him to be a caricature. And yet, I speak not to make fun of him, but only for the truth's sake. I say that he is exactly like the busts of Silenus, which are set up in the statuary shops, holding pipes and flutes in their mouths. And they are made to open in the middle, and have images of gods inside them. I say also that he is like Marsyas the satyr. You yourself will not deny, Socrates, that your face is like that of a satyr. Aye, and there is a resemblance in other points too. Or a bully, as I can prove by witnesses if you will not confess. And are you not a flute player, that you are, and a performer far more wonderful than Marsyas? He, indeed, with instruments, used to charm the souls of men by the power of his breath, and the players of his music do so still. For the melodies of Olympus are derived from Marsyas who taught them, and these, whether they are played by a great master or by a miserable flute girl, have a power which no others have. They alone possess the soul, and reveal the wants of those who have need of gods and mysteries, because they are divine. But you produce the same effect with your words only, and do not require the flute. That is the difference between you and him. When we hear any other speaker, even a very good one, he produces absolutely no effect upon us, or not much, whereas the mere fragments of you and your words, even at second hand, and however imperfectly repeated, amaze and possess the souls of every man, woman, and child who comes within hearing distance of them. And if I were not afraid that you would think me hopelessly drunk, I would have sworn as well as spoken to the influence which they have always had and still have over me, for my heart leaps within me, more than that of any Corybantian reveller, and my eyes rain tears when I hear them. And I observe that many others are affected in the same manner. I have heard Pericles and other great orators, and I thought that they spoke well, but I never had any similar feeling. My soul was not stirred by them, nor was I angry at the thought of my own slavish state. But this Marsyas has often brought me to such a pass that I have felt as if I could hardly endure the life which I am leading. This, Socrates, you will admit. And I am conscious that if I did not shut my ears against him and fly as from the voice of the siren, my fate would be like that of others. He would transfix me, and I should grow old sitting at his feet, for he makes me confess that I ought not to live as I do, neglecting the wants of my own soul and busying myself with the concerns of the Athenians. Therefore I hold my ears and tear myself away from him, and he is the only person who ever made me feel ashamed, which you might think not to be in my nature, and there is no one else who does the same. For I know that I cannot answer him, or say that I ought not to do as he bids, but when I leave his presence, the love of popularity gets the better of me. And therefore I run away and fly from him, and when I see him I am ashamed of what I have confessed to him. Many a time I have wished that he were dead, and yet I know that I should be much more sorry than glad if he were to die, so that I am at my wit's end. And this is what I and many others have suffered from the flute playing of this satyr. Yet hear me once more while I show you how exact the image is, and tell you how marvelous his power. For let me tell you, none of you know him, but I will reveal him to you. Having begun, I must go on. See you how fond he is of the fair. He is always with them, and is always being smitten by them. And then again, he knows nothing, and is ignorant of all things. Such is the appearance which he puts on. Is he not like a Silenus in this? To be sure he is. His outer mask is the carved head of the Silenus, but oh, my companions, in drink, when he is opened, what temperance there is residing within! Know you that beauty and wealth and honor, at which the many wonder, are of no account with him, and are utterly despised by him. He regards not at all the persons who are gifted with them. Mankind are nothing to him. All his life is spent in mocking and flouting at them. But when I opened him, and looked within at his serious purpose, I saw in him divine and golden images of such fascinating beauty that I was ready to do in a moment whatever Socrates commanded. They may have escaped the observation of others, but I saw them. Now I fancy that he was seriously enamored of my beauty, and I thought that I should therefore have a grand opportunity of hearing him tell what he knew, for I had a wonderful opinion of the attractions of my youth. In the prosecution of this design, when I next went to him, I sent away the attendants who usually accompanied me. I will confess the whole truth and beg you to listen, and if I speak falsely, you, Socrates, will expose the falsehood. Well, he and I were alone together, and I thought that when there was nobody with us, I should hear him speak the language which lovers use to their loves when they are by themselves, and I was delighted. Nothing of the sort. He conversed as usual, and spent the day with me, and then went away. Afterwards I challenged him to the palestra, and he wrestled and closed with me several times when there was no one present. I fancied that I might succeed in this manner. Not a bit. I made no way with him. Lastly, as I had failed hitherto, I thought that I must take stronger measures and attack him boldly, and as I had begun, not give him up, but see how matters stood between him and me. So I invited him to sup with me, just as if he were a fair youth, and I a designing lover. He was not easily persuaded to come. He did, however, after a while accept the invitation, and when he came the first time, he wanted to go away at once, as soon as the supper was over, and I had not the face to detain him. The second time, still in pursuance of my design, after we had supped, I went on conversing far into the night, and when he wanted to go away, I pretended that the hour was late and that he had much better remain. So he lay down on the couch next to me, the same on which he had supped, and there was no one but ourselves sleeping in the apartment. All this may be told without shame to any one, but what follows I could hardly tell you if I were sober. Yet, as the proverb says, in vino veritas, whether the boys or without them, in allusion to two proverbs. And therefore I must speak, nor again should I be justified in concealing the lofty actions of Socrates when I came to praise him. Moreover, I have felt the serpent's sting, and he who has suffered, as they say, is willing to tell his fellow sufferers only, as they alone will be likely to understand him, and they will not be extreme in judging of the sayings or doings which have been wrung from his agony. For I have been bitten by a more than viper's tooth. I have known in my soul or in my heart or in some other part that worst of pangs more violent in ingenuous youth than any serpent's tooth, the pang of philosophy, which will make a man say or do anything. And you, whom I see around me, Phaedrus, and Agathon, and Eryximachus, and Pausanias, and Aristodemus, and Aristophanes, all of you, and I need not say Socrates himself, have had experience of the same madness and passion in your longing after wisdom. Therefore, listen, and excuse my doings then and my sayings now, but let the attendants and other profane and unmannered persons close up the doors of their ears. When the lamp was put out, and the servants had gone away, I thought that I must be plain with him and have no more ambiguity, so I gave him a shake, and I said, Socrates, are you asleep? No, he said. Do you know what I am meditating? What are you meditating? He said. I think, I replied, that of all the lovers whom I have ever had, you are the only one who is worthy of me, and you appear to be too modest to speak. Now I feel that I should be a fool to refuse you this or any other favor, and therefore I come to lay at your feet all that I have, and all that my friends have, in hope that you will assist me in the ways of virtue, which I desire above all things, and in which I believe that you can help me better than any one else, and I should certainly have more reason to be ashamed of what wise men would say if I were to refuse a favor to such as you, than of what the world, who are mostly fools, would say of me if I granted it. To these words he replied in the ironical manner which is so characteristic of him. Alcibiades, my friend, you have indeed an elevated aim if what you say is true, and if there really is in me any power by which you may become better, truly, you must see in me some rare beauty of a kind infinitely higher than any which I see in you. And therefore, if you mean to share with me and to exchange beauty for beauty, you will have greatly the advantage of me. You will gain true beauty in return for appearance, like Diomede, gold in exchange for brass. But look again, sweet friend, and see whether you are not deceived in me. The mind begins to grow critical when the bodily eye fails, and it will be a long time before you get old. Hearing this, I said, I have told you my purpose, which is quite serious, and do you consider what you think best for you and me? That is good, he said. At some other time, then, we will consider and act as seems best about this and about other matters. Wherefore? Whereupon I fancied that he was smitten, and that the words which I had uttered like arrows had wounded him, and so, without waiting to hear more, I got up, and throwing my coat about him, crept under his threadbare cloak, as the time of the year was winter, and there I lay during the whole night, after having this wonderful monster in my arms. This again, Socrates, will not be denied by you. And yet, notwithstanding all, he was so superior to my solicitations, so contemptuous and derisive and disdainful of my beauty, which really, as I fancied, had some attractions. Hero judges for judges you shall be of the haughty virtue of Socrates. Nothing more happened, but in the morning when I awoke, let all the gods and goddesses be my witness, I rose as from the couch of a father or an elder brother. What do you suppose must have been my feelings after this rejection, at the thought of my own dishonor, and yet I could not help wondering at his natural temperance and self-restraint and manliness. I never imagined that I could have met with a man such as he is in wisdom and endurance, and therefore I could not be angry with him or renounce his company any more than I could hope to win him. For I well knew that if Ajax could not be wounded by steel, much less he by money, and my only attractions had failed. So I was at my wit's end. No one was ever more hopelessly enslaved by another. All this happened before he and I went to the expedition to Potidæa. There we meshed together, and I had the opportunity of observing his extraordinary power of sustaining fatigue. His endurance was simply marvelous. When being cut off from our supplies, we were compelled to go without food. On such occasions, which often happen in time of war, he was superior not only to me, but to everybody. There was no one to be compared to him, yet at a festival he was the only person who had any real powers of enjoyment, though not willing to drink. He could, if he compelled, beat us all at that. Wonderful to relate, no human being had ever seen Socrates drunk, and his powers, if I am not mistaken, will be tested before long. His fortitude in enduring cold was also surprising. There was a severe frost, for the winter in that region is really tremendous, and everybody else either remained indoors or if they went out had on an amazing quantity of clothes and were well shod, and had their feet swathed in felt and fleeces. In the midst of this, Socrates, with his bare feet on the ice and his ordinary dress, marched better than the other soldiers who had shoes, and they looked daggers at him because he seemed to despise them. I have told you one tale, and now I must tell you another which is worth hearing, of the doings and sufferings of the enduring man. While he was on the expedition, one morning he was thinking about something which he could not resolve. He would not give it up, but continued thinking from early dawn until noon. There stood fixed in thought. And at noon attention was drawn to him, and the rumor ran through the wondering crowd that Socrates had been standing and thinking about something ever since the break of day. At last in the evening after supper, some Ionians, out of curiosity, I should explain that this was not in the winter but in summer, brought out their mats and slept in the open air that they might watch him and see whether he would stand all night. There he stood until the following morning, and with the return of the light he offered up a prayer to the sun, and all went his way. I will also tell, if you please, and indeed I am bound to tell, of his courage in battle. For who but he saved my life? Now, this was the engagement in which I was received the prize of valor. For I was wounded, and he would not leave me, but he rescued me in my arms, and he ought to have received the prize of valor, which the generals wanted to confer on me, partly on account of my rank, and I told them so. This again Socrates will not impeach nor deny. But he was more eager than the generals that I and he should have the prize. There was another occasion on which his behavior was very remarkable. In the flight of the army after the battle of Delium, where he served among the heavy-armed, I had a better opportunity of seeing him than at Potidæa, for I was myself on horseback, and therefore comparatively out of danger. He and lackeys were retreating, for the troops were in flight, and I met them and told them not to be discouraged, and promised to remain with them, and there you might see him, Aristophanes, as you describe, just as he is, in the streets of Athens, shaking, stalking like a pelican, and rolling his eyes, calmly contemplating enemies as well as friends, and making very intelligible to anybody, even from a distance, that whoever attacked him would be likely to meet with a stout resistance. And in this way he and his companion escaped, for this is the sort of man who is never touched in war. Those only are pursued who are running away headlong. I particularly observed how superior he was to lackeys in presence of mind. Many are the marvels which I might narrate in praise of Socrates. Most of his ways might perhaps be paralleled in another man, but his absolute unlikeness to any human being that is or ever has been is perfectly astonishing. You may imagine Brasidas and others to have been like Achilles, or you may imagine Nestor and Antenor to have been like Pericles, and the same may be said of other famous men, but of this strange being you will never be able to find any likeness, however remote, either among men who now are or ever have been, other than that which I have already suggested of Silenus and the satyrs. And they represent in a figure not only himself but his words. For although I forgot to mention this to you before, his words are like the images of Silenus which open. They are ridiculous when you first hear them. He clothes himself in language that is like the skin of the wanton satyr, for his talk is of pack-asses and smiths and cobblers and curriers, and he is always repeating the same things in the same words, so that every ignorant or inexperienced person might feel disposed to laugh at him. But he who opens the bust and sees what is within will find that they are the only words which have a meaning in them, and also the most divine, abounding in fair images of virtue, and of the widest comprehension, or rather, extending to the whole duty of a good and honorable man. This, friends, is my praise of Socrates. I have added my blame of him for his ill treatment of me, and he has got ill-treated not only me, but Charmides, the son of Glaucon, and Euthydemus, the son of Diocles, and many others in the same way. Beginning as their lover, he has ended by making them pay their addresses to him. Wherefore I say to you, Agathon, be not deceived by him. Learn from me and take warning, and do not be a fool, and learn by experience, as the proverb says. When Alcibiades had finished, there was a laugh at his outspokenness, for he seemed to be still in love with Socrates. You are sober, Alcibiades, said Socrates, or you would have never gone so far about to hide the purpose of your satyr's praises. For all this long story is only ingenious circumlocution, of which the point comes in by way at the end. You want to get up a quarrel between me and Agathon, and your notion is that I ought to love you and nobody else, and that you and only you ought to love Agathon, but the plot of this satiric or Selenic drama has been detected, and you must not allow him, Agathon, to set us at variance. I believe you are right, said Agathon, and I am disposed to think that his intention in placing himself between you and me was only to divide us. But he shall gain nothing by that move, for I will go and lie down on the couch next to you. Yes, yes, replied Socrates. By all means, come here, and lie on the couch below me. Alas, said Alcibiades, how I am fooled by this man. He is determined to get the better of me at every turn. I do beseech you, allow Agathon to lie between us." "Certainly not," said Socrates, "as you praised me, and I intend not to praise my neighbor right. He will be out of order in praising me again when he ought rather to be praised by me. And I must entreat you to consent to this, and not to be jealous, for I have a great desire to praise the youth." "Hurrah!" cried Agathon. "I will rise instantly, that I may be praised by Socrates." "The usual way," said Alcibiades. "Where Socrates is, no one else has any chance with the fair. And now how readily has he invented a specious reason for attracting Agathon to himself." Agathon arose, in order that he might take his place on the couch by Socrates, when suddenly a band of revelers entered, and spoiled the order of the banquet. Someone who was going out having left the door open, they had found their way in, and made themselves at home. Great confusion ensued, and everyone was compelled to drink large quantities of wine. Aristodemus said that Eryximachus, Phaedrus, and others went away. He himself fell asleep, and as the nights were long, took a good rest. He was awakened towards daybreak by a crowing of cocks, and when he awoke the others were either asleep or had gone away. There remained only Socrates, Aristophanes, and Agathon, who were drinking out of a large goblet, which they passed round, and Socrates was discoursing to them. Aristodemus was only half awake, and he did not hear the beginning of the discourse. The chief thing which he remembered was Socrates compelling the other two to acknowledge that the genius of comedy was the same with that of tragedy, and that the true artist in tragedy was an artist in comedy also. To this they were constrained to assent, being drowsy, and not quite following the argument. And first of all, Aristophanes dropped off. Then, when the day was already dawning, Agathon, Socrates, having laid them to sleep, rose to depart. Aristodemus, as his manner was, following him. At the Lyceum he took a bath, and passed the day as usual. In the evening he retired to rest at his own home. Thus ends the Symposium of Plato. That little final point that they were talking about tragedy and comedy being like in a similar vein, I have heard people say that comedy and horror have a really a similar rhythm to them. Someone who's good at one will be good at the other because of the way that you have to build tension and release it with like really good timing. Comedy and horror can be similar. Maybe that's what they're talking about here. So, overall, I don't know enough about Plato and what all these other people to know like who's talking about what kind of love. I mean, the last one, this is definitely man on man, dictastic action. And so where does the term platonic love that's not sexual come from? Was it from this? I don't even know anymore. But I hope you enjoyed this reading, and thank you for letting me read to you. Please check the description for where to buy my art and my channel page for where to send me a one-time donation. I'm still working on Salome. I've got about 2/3 recorded. I've got almost all the pictures drawn in there. I'm working on the special effects. I feel it's getting magnificent, and I hope to have it out in the next week. So, on that note, see you later.